Welcome to Westeros.org's video review and bonus materials for the final episode of Season 4 of Game of Thrones, The Children. We are going to start off with some background material discussing the children, or at least the children of the forest, and then we are going to do some additional background material at the very end of the episode, which is rather spoilery. If you haven't read the novels, if you haven't read the Dunk and Egg novellas, there's definitely spoilers for both, especially the novellas in that, so just keep that in mind if you're staying to the end of the episode. After the initial bit of background material, we will, as usual, do our highs and lows, and then our story-by-story discussion of the whole episode.
So, the Children of the Forest, introduced here in an example of one child of the forest. I don't know if they're planning to have more in the books. And I think it's fair to say, since we've gotten that far, we can say, yes, we meet Children of the Forest in A Dance with Dragons.
This is basically taking us through to, as far as Bran's story goes, to A Dance with Dragons.
Yeah. Bran's story has hit A Dance with Dragons. It's gone to the penultimate chapter, in fact, basically, of his in that book. And there are Children of the Forest there in Under That Hill. More than just the one. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but obviously, what are Children of the Forest? Now, the show has mentioned them, I'm certain. I know that the DVD history extras have definitely mentioned them. But they are the first inhabitants of Westeros. They are the people who exist there in the Dawn Age, a time before recorded history, before the arrival of the Andals, before the arrival even of the First Men. And as you can see, First Men, the children are not considered human. And they aren't.
No.
We see this. I mean, they're described initially as small and dark and beautiful, and they are, but they're not human. We'll get into that. Well, first, we'll discuss. I mean, who were the children? What did they? I mean, they believe they were the originators of a sort of worship of. They had a sort of an animistic religion. They worshipped the gods of sort of stream and spirit and stream and stone and tree, and they're the ones who first started carving the weirwoods with faces. And they didn't work in metal. They didn't weave fabrics. They used natural material. So dragon glass, obsidian, they used that a lot to make their arrowheads, spearheads, knife blades. They made clothing out of leaves. They made, ropes out of, woven grass. They didn't make cities. They didn't have real houses, castles. They didn't do that. They lived in caverns. They lived in grottos. They lived in tree towns. That's the closest we get to a town, which makes me think of maybe a little bit like the Ewoks on Endor, little platforms up in trees.
Thinking more Lothlorien, but
you could go Lothlorien, I suppose, if you really must.
Well,
but
this sounds better than Ewoks.
They're not human. Okay. Well, funnily enough, then you have, I was going to mention, I mean, they're not necessarily the only inhabitants of Westeros at this time. It seems clear that the giants existed. They were the greatest sort of friends.
So now you're talking Wookiees and Ewoks?
Yes, speaking of, this is where we're going to bring out the Chewbacca defense, I suppose. But giants existed. They've been existent there in Westeros as long as the children have been, as far as we know. And both races have dwindled greatly since the coming of men. When the First Men came, the First Men had technological advantages. They came over this land bridge that connected Essos to Westeros. And that land bridge was down in Dorne, basically. You have this arm, this jut, eastern jut of Dorne, and you have the stepstones, these little rocky islands in between. And those are the remnants of that land bridge. Now, when the First Men came over, they had horses, they had bronze, they had the leather shields and such. It doesn't seem that the children actually domesticated animals. They didn't do that sort of thing. So, and of course the First Men expanding, migrating. We don't really know the full story of why they came over, what drove them. We don't even know their origins in Essos. It's all speculative. They fought these little strange alien people with their little strange religion, were occupying lands and places that they wanted, and I guess out of fear, they fought them. And this is fighting that lasts for centuries. I mean, they go the first men go all the way up into the north in time, and that must have taken centuries to happen. That eventually settles down. Eventually. Before then, though, there's a lot of slaughter, and the children were on the losing end of that, because despite their magic, despite their numbers, they weren't as prolific as people. They didn't breed as quickly. They weren't as numerous as First Men soon became, and they didn't have the technological advantages. Plus, this size and strength and so on, they were much smaller. So, and the First Men feared the weirwoods. They're carved weirwoods, and cut them down. They thought that the weirwoods' faces were eyes which their green seers could see through.
Why would they think that?
Why would they think that? And but eventually, at some point, it said in the books that the legend has it that the children tried to stop the First Men from coming further by destroying the land bridge. They met at the greatest green seers met at Moat Cailin, which we saw in episode 8, and they raised the Hammer of the Waters to try and the legend. That's the legendary explanation for why the broken arm is the broken arm. We don't know if that's actually true. It could be just a natural thing that happened, but that's a legend. The children tried to stop the migration of First Men into Westeros, but it was too late by then. By the time they hit on that, there were too many First Men already present. But eventually, they managed to form a peace. The First Men, I think, we don't know exactly how it formed. Like, we don't... It was just... Were people just tired of fighting? Did some First Men begin to adopt sort of friendlier relations with the children and start to follow their gods? Because we know now the First Men follow the same sort of general religious practices of the children. So on the Isle of Faces in the God's Eye, in the Riverlands, the great wood dancers and green seers and the great warriors and lords of the First Men met, and they formed the pact, and it's called the pact, which promised that the children from here on out would have, they would withdraw from sort of plains and field and so on. They would retreat to the deep woods, and the caverns would be theirs. And to mark this pact, this Order of the Green Men was formed, and they carved all the faces of the weirwoods on the Isle of Faces. There are many weirwoods, and to this day it's said that the Order is still there guarding it. Sometimes people try to go to the Isle of Faces, and their boats pull into this weird fog, and then they find themselves having missed it entirely and having on the other side of a lake when they come out of the fog. So there's something magical there. Now the children, appearance-wise, they're smaller, they're darker. They are not human. And I think, we see here that she has... I don't know how far they went. Now, we know what they had here is this child is a child. It's a young child actress. And whereas the voice, obviously, is an adult woman. They dubbed it... Because actually, it says that the child, when they hear her, she looks as small as a child, but her voice is very beautiful and mature, like a beautiful woman's singing voice, almost. It's very interesting, but... The skin, they have it's quite brown.
Yeah, whereas in the book, they're described actually as dappled, like a camouflage almost.
Like fawns, I think is sort
of.
So I would say the brown is right, but this was a dappling that she doesn't seem to have. The eyes are large and golden, as they're called, and most notably, they have vertical slits like cats. Their ears are large, sort of leaf-shaped, I think, or fairly large anyways. And to me, and then their fingers, they have 3 fingers. They have a thumb and 3 fingers on their hand. And those fingers end in claws. To me, this speaks of something feline-like.
You have hunting cats that have like a dappled skin as well. So
ocelots and things like that.
Maybe something like that.
So I think they are. That's the sort of vague inspiration. They are something more feline, and now it's believed that they're all gone. But we'll discover in House of Dragons that no, but there are still some left under this great hill beneath a weirwood, and that they are there in attendance on... Well, on that we'll have to discuss further background. So, our highs and lows for this episode.
I guess we could start off by saying that it was kind of an uneven episode in that there were some things that they really got right, and then there were scenes that were pretty good, but they arrived at them by faulty logic and by really wanting to have they wanted the story to go in a particular way, they wanted characters to do particular things, and it felt very much forced how they got them there.
Yeah, there are things...
The story logic and having things happen because the plot demands it rather than because it's the natural thing.
Yeah, it's problematic, and where you have this material, but it's adapting, and then they do things that are, in some ways, radically different from what the characters. So, how do you justify having a character from a material that's being adapted do something radically different than what the original character did? To me, you can justify it by saying, we're going our own way, and we've built the story logic for this. But there are times when the story logic, we don't see how they reach that point. Like, okay, we can understand you want to get to that point, but you haven't actually done enough to establish that. So, let's start with highs, though. Let's maybe alternate a little bit.
Yeah.
First high is the Three-Eyed Raven. And I don't want to spoil too much.
Crow. Oh.
Three-Eyed Crow is how he ought to be called.
Yeah.
There's a Three-Eyed Raven on the show, but
because I guess they thought the whole thing with Night's Watchmen being called crows, and then which kind of is silly because, well, again, spoilery stuff.
Yeah,
it would make sense. But yes, getting to hear in particularly the line, watch you all your lives with 1,000 eyes and one.
Give me goosebumps.
Yes, when we read that one in the books, again, we'll get to that in the spoilery section. This is a difficult one to talk about. We squealed.
No,
quite literally squealed. And seeing that on the show, that they actually did it, and that was a very memorable moment. It may not mean that much for those who are just TV viewers, although obviously they built up that Bran has been going, that's been his goal for a very long time, and having him told that you'll never walk again, but you will fly.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish we could. We don't want to spoil too much because no amount of our explaining it will make it as cool as if you've kind of read it directly. So we'll save that for the background. But it is. I think a lot of fans had a very strong.
It's such a key moment. It is such a key moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I can say more generally, I'm glad that they went there.
Yes.
I'm glad that they went to embracing sort of this very magical element of the story. Now I'll bring that to our low because I think they kind
embraced it a little too much.
They overdid it, didn't they? With the lead up to that, the attack by these skeletal armored wights who are fast wights
and making
screeching.
weird kind of screeching, chittering sounds like.
They were completely different from any of the wights we've seen before, and I don't know if this is to indicate that they are in some fashion special, imbued with extra power by the others. I don't know. They just seemed really fast. It seemed kind of...
This is nothing like what they are in the books. In the books, they act like your regular wights, pretty much. They seem to...
They were just regular wights. They weren't anything
No, they were dormant under the snow there, and I guess they had been drawn to this magic place.
Yeah.
Chasing someone there, or preventing someone from coming out, or...
something, yeah.
Or having died there and been reanimated by, White Walkers or others that couldn't get in there. But yes, they should have been shambling.
It's the sheer number of them.
It's the sheer numbers that should be the danger. They shouldn't have this apparent intelligence that...
Yeah.
They should just be, these shambling automatons.
So my problem is I don't mind the idea that there's some different kind of magic at play, but it seemed a little corny. The way they were jumping around and springing and chasing after. It seemed a little...
Jason and the Argonauts.
Ray Harryhausen, the Skeleton Warriors, and Jason the Argonauts, and Sinbad, is my immediately, and maybe that's what they intended. They intended a little homage to it. It was just jarring to see it so
It's not very A Song of Ice and Fire.
It's not very Song of Ice and Fire. It's not very much like what we've seen before, and it felt a little... And then...
we had fireballs.
The fireballs. Now, the Child of the Forest does save the day, but she leaps in with a torch, basically, and burns some of the whites and clears away for them. She does not throw magical fireballs.
There's no evidence we have that they can throw magical fireballs.
No.
That they control the elements. You know, if the story of them smashing the land bridge with water or an earthquake, if that is true, they can probably control the elements, and perhaps, you know, if she had a torch, she could...
Maybe. To me, it was just like overdoing it.
Yeah.
It did lead to a lovely image. I thought it was lovely, anyways, of Jojen's dead eye reflecting the last ball was going to destroy his body and prevent him from, you know, so he'll end in flame just as he saw. I would have been better, I thought, if Meera had to leave him alive and he kind of saw that coming and smiled a little bit, knowing he wasn't going to end up a white. But I don't know. It was just a little much. Like, to me, they did the stuff that, like, George chooses not to do. He doesn't have... He has magic. He has dragons who breathe fire, but he doesn't have sorcerers, you know.
But by the time he introduces the dragons, he makes him seem like a natural part of things. Because he's got this comparison with, you know, not scaring readers away with magic. It's, you know, you're dipping it into hot water, basically. That you don't want to... You don't want to scald people by making it too sudden. And
I'm concerned that there'll be people who react very negatively.
Yeah, especially
like,
when
fireballs. What?
They kind of kept the magic fairly low. I mean, they got people used to dragons and to others.
Yeah.
But yeah, fireballs being lobbed around is
not the best choice they could have done.
Feels a little bit like the upping of magic, hands-on magic that they've been doing with the Hobbit movies.
Oh yeah.
With Gandalf and what have you,
yeah.
which is very un-Tolkienian as well.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know. I think that's a jarring element that they shouldn't have done. It's the only concern I have is that it really detracts from some TV show only people getting very upset by it as being too over the top for what they were expecting. So yeah, I would have preferred it to be a bit low key there. Speaking of dragons, the chaining of dragons, the stuff leading up to that was fantastic.
Yeah,
Emilia Clarke did really well.
Yeah.
They did such a fantastic job of making the dragons seem so you can empathize with them. They're like they're her children, and she's abandoning them.
Taking them for a little walk there, and they're exploring the catacombs and seem quite happy. And oh, look, here's meat, and mommy's petting us, and what? Mommy's going away.
No, let's go with her. And
no, we can't. We're stuck.
It's like
Mommy,
crying.
Come back.
No, I thought that
Please,
was
don't leave us here in the dark.
That's a wonderful dramatization of that moment. We only get in retrospect in the novel.
Yeah.
In the chapter after where she's presented the bones of Hosea, by the way. I don't know why.
4-year-old Hosea, not 3-year-old Zala.
I have no idea why they changed her name.
You have the exact scene, and you have the name of the child, and you have her age. And did you just forget? And then why didn't you open the book?
Yeah, it's a bit odd, that one. But anyways.
I do wish, I like the scene. I do wish they had done it just one step closer to the books in that initially they don't realize, the bones are put down. And I think it's one of the characters, is it the shave pate, who points out that, it's somebody else coming to try and, get money for sheep, basically. Yeah. And,
I think the assumption is there in this scene, this is their belief, oh, okay, it's one of those. Yeah. But they're very quick to kind of say, no.
Yeah, it's just, I like the line, I think it's Danny who looks at the bones and says, those aren't the bones of a sheep.
Yeah.
And it's just, that line gave me a chill when I read it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those little things that you miss, because it's
that's right.
That's the moment of realization.
The fellow was silent.
Yes.
He couldn't speak.
No, he couldn't speak. He just, and they were trying to tell him to speak up. And no, it was.
The next low we should discuss, I suppose. And these are. Let's do Cersei.
Yeah.
This is one of those we were talking about earlier about story logic and
I
stuff.
mean, I'll stress here that as everyone knows, I hate the direction that they've taken Cersei in. I hate the casting for Cersei and all of that. But our problems here aren't actually about the performance as such. You know, I think the way about it that I usually think about it, but that doesn't really come into what is the real problem with this scene, which is the logic of it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of performance, I mean, actually, I will say, there's the moment when she comes into Jaime's chamber in the White Sword Tower, those 10, 15 seconds, or actually the closest she is to my vision of Cersei, the way she's sort of leaning on that table and full of sort of energy and like, I've done something naughty and confidence.
I can buy that.
That's like some of the behavior that I wish we'd see more often, but she's so often restrained and reserved. But
it starts with the Cersei Tywin scene.
Does it start there, or does it start with the Gregor scene?
Well, yes, I suppose we can include that one as well, in that it's very peculiar to have Cersei take an interest in keeping Gregor alive. In the books, what happens is that Tywin orders Pycelle to keep him alive, you know, no matter what, so that he can be properly executed and his head sent to the Martells.
Because after all, he did confess to these crimes.
Yes, and Tywin would prefer to put out that particular fire. You know, I think Cersei in this is Cersei in the scene in the book? No.
No.
Well, somebody suggests that, you know, maybe we should try and get information about what poison was used from the Dornish entourage, and he's like, no way, you know, we're gonna have enough trouble with Oberyn being killed. We don't want to upset them more. You know, just let them go. We're not gonna detain them or anything like that. But you're keeping Gregor alive so that we can execute him. What Qyburn eventually then ends up going on and doing after Tywin's death with Gregor is...
Don't get too spoilery, though.
Yes. Well, we already have Qyburn saying here that they're hinting at Qyburn using some method that is going to change him somehow, and it's kind of cheesy, the whole, oh no, with the, will it make him weaker? Oh no. Like, yeah.
The Anti-Lancer's performance is really good.
The performance is fine, it's just a cheesy lines, sort of. So the idea that Cersei would care, like, why?
It's subject to, they don't really establish why. They don't...
I mean, he confessed to things that potentially put her daughter in danger if, you know, she doesn't deal with him, or if the Lannisters don't deal with him.
Yeah. No, it's so baffling to have stuff where they could bring in conflict with Dorne following this. Like, Oberyn's death is practically unmentioned.
No.
The fallout of it.
Cersei, like, mutters bloody Martells, and that's
all. Yeah, the fallout of it goes unmentioned. Nothing, and yet we know that Dornish characters are going to be featured in the next season. They're going to Spain, for God's sake, to film stuff in Dorne.
They're casting a bunch of the Sand Snakes.
It's insane to me. The only thing I can think of is, when they wrote this season, they had no idea what they were going to go over. They thought that maybe that's it. We're not going to touch Dorne ever again.
I suppose.
But they can at least mention, you know, hey, this prince, beloved, popular, dangerous prince is dead, and the Dornish are going to be pissed off. Hey, we should probably kill Gregor, you know.
Yeah.
We could have a mention, oh, well, why do you care? And, you know, your father wants to execute him, and we'll see all that. Something. I mean, it is straight. And then we have the scene with Tywin, and that one is all about how she flip-flops. Now that Tyrion is condemned, she doesn't want to marry Laura. She never did. It was just a ploy. But what she does to try and convince him is, I'll tell everyone. I'll tell the whole world. I
mean, these are Jaime's lines.
Yeah.
This is what Jaime has tried in the past to tell her that, you know, screw everyone else. We'll, you know, do it Targaryen style and just, you know, we can just live in, you know, incestuous sin here and we can get married and all these things that he can spout. And Cersei has always been, no.
Are you
no
an idiot?
Way. On the show as well. Not just in the books. On the show
episode.
as well, yeah. She doesn't want to hear anything about that. Why doesn't she want to hear anything about that? Well, hello. It kind of endangers her position majorly. She has been committing adultery as Robert's queen. Her children aren't exactly Robert's legitimate heirs. They are, incest spawn. What is that going to do to remaining children? Are the Tyrells going to want to marry Marjorie to Tommen? Are they going to keep supporting the Lannisters holding on to the heir and throne? What are the Dornish going to think about their hostage or guest, Myrcella? The children are supposed to be foremost in Cersei's thoughts, well, after herself, but she's certainly very concerned about her children. It's, one of her redeeming traits, right? That and her cheekbones, apparently. And here she's apparently throwing that out of the window completely. She has no thoughts about protecting them.
It's a dramatic...
I mean, it's the same as, basically, it's consistent, I guess, from the scene with Gregor, because she has no thoughts about protecting Myrcella by giving the Martells what they want. And here, she figures that, the realm won't really do anything to me or my children if I admit that, I cuckolded Robert all those years and those are actually Jaime's kids.
Yeah.
I mean, Tywin could just go and say...
Well, what I would say was Tywin's fault. I mean, I can see his initial shock, right? But I mean...
Because he does seem to be in denial about it.
He is in denial. He's shocked and bothered by it. So that's fine. But his response should be, okay, if you do that, I can't support you anymore. The day you announce that, the very next day, every Lannister soldier is gone. I'm going back to Casterly Rock, and you're left alone with the Tyrell army around you to decide what happens.
And Tyrion did not kill the king, by the way.
And by the way, I'm going to take Tyrion with me, and he's going to be my heir.
Because he did not kill the king. That wasn't the legitimate king.
Because I'd rather have a monster of my blood ruling Casterly Rock than a monster of your blood. That would completely cut her to the quick. She would have nothing she could answer to that. She'd have to go and kill her father, basically, if she wants to get away with that. Now, people are going to say, well, hey, who says that later in the episode that isn't what Tywin's hit on, but the next day he's going to talk to her and tell her, by the way, that thing you mentioned.
But that still leaves the assumption that Cersei could be that stupid and that thoughtless. She's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But... No.
It actually really undercuts her. And then... it sets up the next scene, which is... Now, there's so many things about this scene. Like, first off, let's just talk about the episode 3 and the
rape scene,
the sept scene, which we said ourselves, like, it was really, the cutting really made it look, you really had to stare hard. Like, it was only our sort of, they couldn't have meant that they couldn't have meant to make that rape scene, but made us see in that episode that, okay, in that scene there are bits in there where we see that it is it's a dark, it's a violent, it's rough, it's unpleasant, but it seems to be something that they both want.
And it seems to be how they interact.
And it seems to be how they interact, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people said, no, they don't, it's a rape scene. That's it. Yeah. And, Nikolai Coster-Waldau was in an interview saying to people,
that's not what we shot.
That's not what we intended to shoot. Like, we can see why rape is horrible, and it's not really what we intended for people to get out of it. And there's a scene at the end of a season which turns on our intent rather than your perception. And when this scene ends with I don't care, wow, I had no expectation. I mean, I suspected it would be a seduction scene.
Yeah.
Because in the books, she actually does try to sort of resume a relationship with Jaime to get him to do what she wants, which is something very different, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But, and in there he rejects her, actually. They've changed 2 characters, they've changed Jaime as well. But there I can kind of see more room for it just because of the timeline differences and the way they've changed.
Jaime has really been standing in one spot as far as character development, I feel, this season.
Yes,
he's been
regressed a bit.
Treading water. He has, and almost regressed. So his concerns about, improving himself, improving the standing of the Kingsguard.
All you do is basically get the Oathkeeper moment and his staring at the book on occasion.
Yeah, and now apparently he has no problem banging his sister in the White Sword Tower.
Yeah, in the book, he would have even been willing to do it somewhere else, but it's like the White Sword Tower, the chambers of the Kingsguard.
Yeah,
it's too sacred for him. Like he can't go back. I mean,
they even have him pushing the book away.
Yeah,
as he gets on as they get on the table, very much like I'm picking my sister here. Forget that. But
anyway, so they changed her and they changed it, and I don't know, they completely reversed the argument, basically.
Yeah.
They have her. And I don't think that they have actually genuinely sold
No.
this. They have made her incredibly stupid to think she can get away with it. I don't mind Jaime being dumb about it.
Yeah.
He's very short-sighted,
And
he's
he doesn't think about the children in the same way that she does.
He doesn't. They're what's the phrase he uses?
He's my seed, not my son, I think. Basically is what he says about Joffrey, I think. You never allowed me to be a father.
There's a much more crass
Yeah.
line, so she's a squirt of my seed in her cunt or something.
Well, yeah, but there's... Yeah.
Yeah. Jaime,
basically, he has no paternal feelings about those.
She hasn't let him. I mean, it's not like he doesn't want to, but she basically said it's too dangerous for you to hang around them and people start making rumors, so he basically never got that connection with them. They're just... They're her kids, basically. And he kind of knows that they're his, but he doesn't feel that feeling towards them. So he doesn't think about that. He doesn't think necessarily, let's rule the Seven Kingdoms or whatever. I mean, we'll go to Castle Rock and fuck off to everybody. I mean, it's
very short-sighted. It's very Jaime.
It's not Cersei.
It's not Cersei.
And it's funny, I mean, because you're really cutting that character. I mean, look, she is not the sharpest. She is not. She thinks she's a better political maneuverer.
Yes, she really likes to think about how clever she is.
She thinks she's better than she actually is, but that said, she's not as bad as some people are.
No, I mean, I think Tyrion describes her as having a sort of low cunning.
Yes, she does.
Cunning. And she, she knows how to defend herself and how to defend her children.
Yeah, and telling the world that, hey, incest babies, and by the way, I'm still queen regent, and my son is still king, even though he has no connection to the last king at all. Is not. It makes no sense, and
that's not how you win the Game of Thrones.
No, it's cheap drama with Tywin, and I mean, I could have seen something else if the argument escalated and where she revealed that, and she didn't to him just to hurt him, but not to say I'm going to reveal it to the world, but just I don't know. It's just to me.
I think they fell in love with the idea of having that dichotomy of those two scenes.
Yeah,
and basically manipulated the characters or just shoved the characters into those spots.
Yeah.
And I believe, we complained a lot about that with Arya in Harrenhal, where we thought that, well, her scenes with Tywin were fine, but there were a lot of, you had to look the other way as far as logic, and you just had to shove the characters together because you want something particular to happen, and, screw the rest of the story, screw the character development.
So I don't know. I mean, I as again, because of the change of Jaime, it feels like a part and parcel of what they've done with him. He said they've kept them treading water.
Yeah.
But they haven't, to
Which
me.
isn't necessarily good.
Yes, I'm saying it's good, but at least there's the logic there where they've kept him.
They haven't had him advance. No, it's absolutely true. There hasn't been a strong arc forward for him, which is I feel a mistake in itself, but
it's deliberate, I think. Whereas I don't think for Cersei, I think it's deliberate. I think for Cersei, they kind of just didn't create anything to say why she would get to that point.
No.
It's actually true in the books. She's still on the hook to marry someone.
Yeah.
At her father's command.
Yeah.
And why she comes to Jaime in Tower is to convince him. Well, look, if you say to father you'll quit the King's Guard, you can become Lord of Casterly Rock, and we can both be a Casterly Rock together. And the funny thing is I mean, surely given that he had been prepared to offer that for Tyrion's acquittal, or at least his confession and his being able to join the wall on the show, why would he necessarily reject it now?
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't maybe feel it's not important enough, which says a lot about him, actually, and his feelings for Cersei is very complex. But I don't know. To me, it's just
there's a lot of just pushing people into odd positions here.
I think you have to kind of really suspend disbelief a lot for this to feel like a great earned turn for these characters. I think I think, as I say, the idea that they had, we want this dichotomy.
We want to mirror that scene with her saying, I don't care, and
but then just not really selling why.
I don't care for it.
I don't know, but that was disappointing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, here's another where they sort of change things around and they force things, and there are some problems with it, but it did lead to some really strong scenes, which is Arya and her story. When they finally have, let's get the negative part out of the side. There's there's two negatives. First, let's remember the scene in episode 8 where they are at the Bloody Gate, and we asked in our review, kind of like, what's going to happen? How are they able to walk away from there? Like, okay, fine, Lysa is dead. They just announced to Donald Wainwood and all these guards, here's Arya Stark, the long-lost Stark potential heiress. And here I am, the Hound, I'm one of the most famous, dangerous men in the Seven Kingdoms. Former Lannister servant, former Kingsguard. Why are we letting them walk away? Why is it? Well, why isn't the Hound there? Oh, okay, Lysa's dead. Well, who's running the Eyrie now? Oh, Arya's cousin. Well, maybe I can get him.
Maybe they killed all of them.
Maybe they murdered them all.
Yeah.
Maybe they tried to stop them and they killed them all. We just don't see it, I suppose. But let's negotiate with little Robin Arryn. Maybe he'll pay for his little swamp rat of a cousin.
Swamp rat.
Yes. Okay, no. Who's running?
Is that a Mirish swamp?
No, it's a neckish.
It's a neckish. Okay.
How about who's running the Eyrie? Oh, her husband. Who did she marry? Littlefinger. Oh, that scumbag. You can always make a deal with Littlefinger. But okay, now we're going to get that he doesn't really want to sell her into danger, so he might decide not to do that. Fine. But still, why would they let him go? So, okay, so that's just like, you'll just have to accept the idea that he can show up there and turn around and no one says boo. Which is insane to me, but fine. The other problem is Brienne. I mean, the whole thing turns on the two characters really saying, who's going to be the better guardian for Arya? And it's such a strange thing to have a fight to the death over, basically. Like,
I mean, maybe they thought it was going to be, well, that's so tragic that they can't. I think that's what they intended, basically. Or they both have Arya's best interest in mind, and it's so tragic that they, they're both too stubborn and can't really back down. But
I'm more bothered. I'm more bothered with Brienne being so bloody aggressive.
Yeah.
Why not a moment that wait? Okay, look. Well, how about we both protect her?
Yeah.
Why not?
They really amped that up with her character.
I mean,
she's a lot more insecure, really, and
I mean, she's the one who draws the sword first.
Yeah.
I mean, if she said, "Fine, okay, you protect her, and then we're just gonna follow you wherever you go."
Yeah.
It just felt very. The Brienne, and I mean, people have been saying it since the second season, really, but she is not the same Brienne as in the book. She's more aggressive, more violent. Yeah. It did lead to some great scenes, though, I have to say, and that's why we consider some of it stuff highs, because fine, they've changed these characters to and they really forced them together, and a little of the logic is strained, but they made the best of it that they could with some really fantastic work.
Yeah.
First, Maisie Williams, when they're first coming up to her, and she's like trying to tell them hurry up, and then she kind of goes,
Yeah, I mean, at first I was kind of baffled by how she acted with Brienne. Is she like, just because it's a woman with a sword, is she becoming all this nice and chatty? Yeah. That doesn't seem right. But then, of course, when the Hound comes out, or rather when Podrick actually recognizes the Hound, that's the moment when he says that's Sandor Clegane, the Hound. Arya steps behind him and comes out on the other side, and her expression has completely changed. Yeah, dead eyes, dead expression, just sort of looking at them. And so she was just stalling for time, and I guess checking to see how they were going to react to the Hound. Because I don't know if she's still looking fine up until the time that Podrick identifies the Hound.
No, it was really uncanny. It was really well performed there. And then the confrontation, the fight is cut very fast. I noticed this.
Stunt.
I think there was a lot of stunt doubling.
For Gwendolyn Christie, I think.
For Gwendolyn Christie, I think. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think so. But it was brutal. It was really brutal.
Yeah.
And it became very quickly a close combat fight as well, with punching and kicking and
ear biting.
I wonder who came up with that particular kick from the Hound to the prone Brienne, which looks like he kicked her between the legs.
Yeah.
Which would be, even for a woman, I imagine, a very hard kick from a hard boot would be pretty painful. But someone had to think, well, we never see that. You always see guys getting kicked between the legs. Let's have a woman kick between the legs.
Yeah.
But she bites off his ear. It's very funny because we saw the preview video early on where she was kind of giggling over the fact that she gets to bite off somebody's ear and spit it out. I never thought then that it would have been the Hound.
Yeah.
I had assumed, the story I had worked out in my head was, well, the wildlings are going to jump them, and then Brienne's going to come along and help them. There'd be something like that. Wildlings, actually, the clansmen. The clansmen. They are wildlings as well, but they're clansmen. Something like that. But this worked pretty well, and I think it's brutal. Although, I will say, to all of you people who say, oh, the Rob Roy fight, you kept going on about it. The ending was ridiculous, the way he held the sword and stopped him. Yeah, tell that to Alex Graves and co, where the Hound grabs with both hands a piece of Valyrian steel, and holds it and prevents her from finishing him off. The funny thing is, there's a guy there's a video about Rob Roy from a guy who's a historical armed combat practitioner, expert, talking about that, you can actually hold a bladed weapon with your bare hand. They're not that sharp.
Obviously, he is bleeding. That's because it's Valyrian steel.
Yes.
The guy had obviously...
Well, I think he was even remarking there, but he thought in Rob Roy, Liam Neeson bleeding was a bit ridiculous because it isn't that sharp. Whereas Valyrian steel is supposed to be extremely sharp. So that's actually a bit of a change there. But in any case, I just thought it was really funny when people were kind of trying to dismiss that one of the greatest sword fights
I think
ever
that
shown.
video is actually about the guy, basically. I think he's probably must have done other videos where he discusses complaints about fight scenes
in movies
and such, and he said he had such a hard time finding anything that people complained about with this scene. It's basically the sword grabbing and the fact that the style of the sword is a little odd for how Tim Roth uses it.
Some of the movements were a little showy, dramatic, whatever, but for the most part he thought it was one of the best things he'd ever seen on film. So in any case, that's a distraction, but I just thought it was very funny when people were kind of dismissing it based on just that final moment, and here the show kind of doubles down on it. Not just one hand, both hands. Not just regular steel, Valyrian steel, no problem.
Well, he did bleed.
He did bleed. Well, so did Liam Neeson. But it's still the same thing. Of course, it ended very differently because Liam Neeson wins the day. The Hound doesn't. Very brutal when she uses that rock on him again and again.
Yeah. And the yelling and all of that.
The screaming and
it gets very...
she got very ferocious there. I thought that was really fantastic. I would have loved to see more of Podrick and Arya in that. It wasn't utterly clear to me. I guess they were supposed to be I don't know if they were supposed to be watching or she was supposed to run.
Podrick says he was supposed to be watching Arya, and then he hears Brienne and basically runs over to see if she needs help, which I'm not sure what he was supposed to do. They probably disappeared to the same place as Brienne and Podrick's horses.
Yeah, the horses disappear because they're in Iceland and they can't import horses.
So that's why they wake up and the horses that they had the night before have disappeared into thin air.
They could have gotten Icelandic horses instead.
Yeah.
But then they must have shrunk in the wash or something. So.
Yeah, so particularly put Quentin Christiana. Icelandic horse would have been pretty funny.
That would have been quite... Well, Rory as well.
Yeah. Well, he must have ridden some in...
He did indeed ride in the Beowulf and Grendel.
So he must be used to his knees dragging on the ground.
It looked very funny riding one line from the book where she actually's going away. A wolf would finish off a wounded animal.
But that's because they haven't really... he calls her she-wolf all the time.
They don't play with that.
They didn't play with that.
It's a shame.
It's a shame, yeah.
But Roy McCann in particular, this is the best work he's done on the show. And he's done some good stuff.
But this is really...
but this really gave him a real... episode 7? Was that the one where he was... I think it was 7, where he was binding up his wound. 7. 6 or 7. I think it's 7. Binding up the wound on his neck and she tried to burn it. That was great. But this is better. He did such a fine job bringing out... And all that makeup, grime, blood, dirt... on him, and still you could really feel sort of his agony and his defeat and his readiness to just give it up.
He just wants to
give it up. He really sold it, and it's a fantastic ending to that. Obviously this then eventually leads to her own departure.
Yeah.
Where she
might save that for when we
Well,
did
that's we have this as a high as well. Just the general
fair
departure is
Yeah.
we'll discuss it in more detail later. But just the music and this scene, it was fantastic to kind of have that ending.
More lines from the books.
More lines from the books.
Always good.
Always good. But I love the bit where, oh, I see, this is the town. Oh, this must be Salt Pans. That's in the books. That's where she takes off from. And just then Linda pointed out, hey, that guy's shoveling salt.
Yeah, so they don't
great.
actually name it, but they definitely put the
So
salt
that was a nice
there.
touch on their part. Let's finish off with the last lobe. Some missed opportunities and sort of iconic moments. Yes. Jaime and Tyrion end up very different than they do in the books. And I think to the loss of the show.
Yeah, very much.
And this is something they seem to have deliberately decided somewhere in the past to just drop. Which is, if you read the books, you're aware that Tyrion has a very dark history with his...
How much did they reveal? I don't actually remember.
I don't remember, to be honest, either, how much... Did he go so far to reveal he was married to a girl once?
Yes.
They have done that in the first season when...
I think he may have gone so far to say it ended badly, but I don't think we got
that ending badly is very, very bad indeed. It has to do with his family. It has to do with his belief about why it happened, his belief about what Jaime did in relation to it. He loved his brother for what he thought he did.
Yeah.
And Jaime is, in the novel, said, I'm despised by all for the greatest deed I ever did. I'm loved for something I never did. And that's speaking about Tyrion. Tyrion thinks that Jaime did him a favor. Jaime did try to do something good, and it just went horribly bad. But it wasn't Jaime's fault. And in reality, Jaime lied. He didn't do what... I don't know. This is becoming something like...
But I think we have to basically...
Let's talk about it. Let's go and talk. Okay, so when Tyrion is about 12 or 13, he and his brother are riding towards Casterly Rock when a girl, half naked, runs out screaming, and some thugs are after her. And Jaime runs them off, and Tyrion takes her, covers her with his cloak and takes her to an inn and feeds her. And she was a scrawny, farm girl about his age, and they had some drinks and young lust, whatever. They went and slept together, and before you know it, Tyrion found a drunk old septon to marry them, and they lived. He got this little cottage somewhere. Yeah. And he's like I said, he's 12, 13, but he's got money. He's a Lannister. And they're living
apparently quite a precocious 12, 13-year-old to decide to run off and get married. That's
not very realistic. But they live together for a couple of weeks until Tywin finds them and gets the Septon to confess. And and Tywin does something terrible. He he brings out Jaime, and Jaime says, "Look, I didn't mean for it to go this far, and I hired her. She's a prostitute. I just wanted your first time to happen. I wanted you to feel like a hero. I didn't mean for her to marry you. She's just a whore. She's just using you." And Tywin, to prove the point, gives her to his barracks. A lot of men. And each one of them pays her a silver stag, which is a lot of money for a prostitute. And then he insists that at the end, Tyrion finish off with a gold dragon as the fee. Traumatic to say the least. And all he can remember is the coins sort of falling from her hands as she clutched them, and then she was gone. So the thing is, Jaime lied. Tywin made him lie. She really was just an innocent girl who was being threatened and raped by some thugs. She did love him. She was just as naive and young and foolish as he was, but she wasn't angling for anything. She loved him. And Tywin said, no, that's not what you tell him. You tell him she was a prostitute. She was using him. It's all a lie. She didn't love him. So Tyrion despises his father in part because of that. And he loves his brother. Because even though it went horribly wrong, he thinks Jaime had good intentions.
It might also be a little bit, I think, he wants to believe Jaime.
He wants to believe him, yeah.
So that because it kind of gives him an out from what happens, basically.
Yeah.
So that he has to believe that Jaime tried to do something nice, and the whole idea of telling him about that he set it up, kind of lifts a little bit of the blame,
the guilt from him. Yeah,
because I mean he didn't have a choice. Basically, he was terrified of Tywin as well, and
so basically, he finds out from in the book. I mean, Jaime is motivated by, I owed you this, and he said, "What? There's something I have to confess. Like, what is it? Oh, some childhood taunt or something." And no, it's Tisha. That's the girl's name. And what about it? And Tyrion immediately.
Yeah.
There's a portent of something. It was a lie. Father made me say it. And Jaime and Tyrion end up on very bad terms.
Yeah. Tyrion
strikes his brother and says, "The next time we meet, it'll be on a battlefield, and I'll try to kill you." Yeah. He is full of hatred. I mean,
it's you can both understand and not understand in the sense that it's not really. Jaime didn't have much choice either.
No, but it's still.
But it's so traumatizing for Tyrion. I think in particular the fact that he's been avoiding at this moment all that guilt comes rushing back at him at what happened, and he takes it out on Jaime. Because it's not like by the time that Jaime lies, I mean it's too late. Nothing is going to change. So it didn't make him do anything. I mean, I don't think Tyrion couldn't have done anything much different.
No.
But he ends up at this point blaming Jaime for it.
Of course. I think he should blame him for lying to him. I mean, it's not like Jaime was going to get killed by Tywin. He could have. But the other thing about Jaime is it emphasizes that he was morally, I think, weak for a long time in his life. So,
well, I mean, does Jaime, at the point when he tells Tywin, tells Tyrion, realize what Tywin is going to do?
No, but still, he knows that it's a lie and it's untrue and it's going to hurt his brother.
Yeah.
And
But that's not what makes Tyrion react. It's not just that he lied about it. It's the fact of what followed would happen to Tisha.
Sure, but it's still Jaime. I mean, Jaime's the Knight of the King's Guard. He doesn't really owe Tywin anything. No. It's Jaime's weakness.
Yeah.
Impacts how he's perceived this all his life.
Yeah.
Since then, so I think Jaime's absolutely to blame to some degree. I mean,
but maybe not to the degree of next time I see you, I'll kill you.
Well, I don't know why not. This is Westeros. I mean, that's. He has reasons to hate his family more than ever. I mean, even the one person who was nice to him gave him told him the biggest lie he ever had, but it shaped his perception of things. So,
well, couldn't Jaime also have thought when he tells that lie that
he thinks it's for the best?
He's convinced because Tywin has found out.
Yes.
Tywin is going to split up Tyrion and Tisha. Maybe it will make it easier.
That's what
Jaime sees it as a white lie.
Jaime sees it as well. And that says horrible things about him, regardless. I don't know. I can't defend Jaime. I mean, he was morally weak, and he didn't have the courage.
I don't. I found.
Otherwise, aren't you then saying that Jaime is wrong to feel any guilt and upset about it?
No, I think he should feel. I just think that the idea that it could destroy everything. And have Tyrion decide that next time I see you, I'll kill you. That for me.
It's everything else has.
Because Jaime has done a lot of other nice things for Tyrion.
Yeah, but how much good outweighs that bad? To me, my perspective is his family has repeatedly betrayed him. The one person he thought had never betrayed him also has betrayed him. Told him the biggest lie that ever been told to him. Something that seriously harmed him and led to some really sort of horrible. I mean, as I say, he had this sort of weird kind of way to kind of not accept, but I mean, he hated it, but at least reconcile what happened with Tisha with who he is, and now that's pulled out from under him. She really was a prostitute. She really was an innocent girl, and you raped this innocent girl. She wasn't. So well,
he's shelving a lot of his own guilt onto Jaime.
It's not a surprise, given the circumstances. I see nothing wrong with that. I think Jaime maybe didn't see it coming, but it fits Tyrion, and I think it's the tragedy of Tyrion, because the rage that follows leads to more tragic stuff.
Yeah.
So, not having the Tisha material there weakens everything that happens after. With Shae, I found it very problematic, and I found it a mistake on their part to silence Sybil Kelly. In the book, Shae sort of tries to talk her way out of it. Oh, I was so scared of Tywin. Da, da, da. Here,
she grabs a knife.
She grabs a knife to defend herself, to attack him. And immediately comes down to a fight, and it's wordless. And I think they probably found it more shocking that way. And it leaves it all more mysterious. Like, you can't ever figure out what motivated her. But I don't know. It seemed like such a poor way to say farewell to a character who's been here since season 1.
Yeah.
And it leaves her. I keep thinking. Well, think of how Catelyn was silenced in the 3rd season so often. How her grief was silenced, and she was just catatonic, and I had problems with that. And I think that not allowing those characters those expressions of whatever comes to mind when they're about to die is an odd choice. Tywin, they don't shut him up.
No.
He gets to say exactly what he says when he dies. And again, the Tisha thing is a major. When he goes up there, it's to find out where's Tisha.
Yeah.
Where did she go?
Shae, at that point, is a closed chapter for Tyrion. With her death, she betrayed him. That's it. He
doesn't mention her. He doesn't bring it up to his father at all. That's nothing.
They're letting Shae entirely replace Tisha, but the confrontation with Tywin is entirely about Tisha. He wants to know what happened to her. And yes, the word whore is sort of the sticking point, but that's obviously... Here they're making it about the whole thing that, that was sort of the sticking point between me and Shae. She kept, going on about, oh, you just see me as Shae, the funny whore, and I finally sort of tried to chase her away. I was calling her a whore. So that they make that it's a sticking point because of that, but here it's all about the fact, the whole, the lie about Tisha, the fact that she wasn't a whore, and Tywin in the scene insists on calling her that.
Yeah.
And gets shot for it.
Yeah. Where's Tisha? Wherever whores go.
Yeah.
That's a classic line. So I thought in all these cases, I think the decision at some point to bury that, I mean, it could be all that material still there, the trauma of that. I mean, we know, as you're calling it, it ended badly, but we just don't know. But they buried it. They have not made it so present as it is now. And it's true, it's mostly internal material for Tyrion, and we can't be inside his head. But just like they did in the 1st season, they could have found ways to sort of trot it out. They could have had people refer to Tisha in roundabout ways in Tyrion's hearing and so on. They could have built towards it. So I do fault them for dropping what is, I think, part of what really makes it so tragic and so dark.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the tragedy of Tyrion is he is destroyed on so many levels. He knew, 2/3 of the family hated him. But one of them loved him and always seemed to be looking out for him, and now he finds that that's not true. The woman he thought was a prostitute who used him was in fact an innocent girl who loved him. But because of the lies of the family, and it sets him on a path against them. And he's destroyed. I mean, it leads all the way up to his, patricide, which is... which you see, I guess we could say after we see in the follow-up scene with Varys, I mean, Tyrion is numb. Shae and Tywin both, he hated his father, but he always wanted his father's love. He's always craved love. He's always been needy for it, and he always wanted his father's love and respect, and never got it, and it was always withheld from him. And now by killing his father, he's never going to get it. And it does shatter him in some ways, and I hope they maintain this as an important aspect of his story going forward, because it gets very dark for a while there with Tyrion.
I don't think they're going as dark as...
Yeah, we'll see.
So
that's the missed opportunities there, I think, of the Tisha material. I understand that they didn't manage to work it in, and it'd be weird to have it out now, but they should have worked it in.
Yeah.
I think that would have been important, and I think it feels a little bit like it's more of the past is not so interesting as the present, and we're going to focus on the present story. But it acts like these characters spring up fully formed now from the start of the series, and all the years before that had nothing to do with who they are or what motivates them. And I background to characters is important. So, yeah, that's the last low, I guess.
Are you sure about that? Actually,
did I forget something?
Well, did they forget something?
What?
In the episode, something that people might have waited for at the end, perhaps.
Oh, that I don't consider that a low. I don't consider
it's not there. But
for some people, it's gonna be a low.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about. If you read the Storm of Swords, some of you were waiting for the epilogue. I've suspected, and I guess I've known that it wasn't happening. At least not this season.
Obviously, that means that we were prepared for it, and we didn't go in getting the disappointment. But do you?
The thing
how
is,
important?
The thing is the way they end the story. They don't really need to have it now. Anyways, it could be a next season thing. That's the first thing. Because it's not like Storm of Swords is done, as we see.
No.
For next season, it's still carrying some Storm of Swords material with Jon Snow and so on. So I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are, just like those of you who were bafflingly surprised by Sonnet not showing up last episode, I don't have a problem with structure changing, with certain ideas changing, so long as they change well, so long as the structure changes well. So and in particular, the Stannis thing, like we said, like, guys, you're completely changing how it's supposed to be in the book by having him show up right after that fight. It should be longer. There should be some sort of beat, some sort of pause, so you can say, yeah, the Night's Watch managed to save the day for a while, rather than, oh, great, Sonnet survived, he's the hero. And this bit, I don't want to spoil for people who are, but there is an epilogue bit that, for Storm of Swords, which for many is very memorable. It's a big.
It is very memorable.
It is very memorable.
Yeah.
It is memorable. Yes. It is a big, shocking moment. It's very memorable. It's fantastic. It's absolutely pure Song of Ice and Fire. It's bold. It's brilliant. It's not needed right now, I think. Ask me again next season.
If they never get to
they never get to it, I'll question that very strongly. Yeah. Oh yeah, but this one, I don't have a problem.
It does. They do have room to be a bit fluid with it.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
But they should get to it
because the thing is, I can almost see, because the epilogue, if you've read the books, you know that. Well, if you've read Storm of Swords, the epilogue and the prologues are always from different point of view characters who are main point of view characters. I could see them feeling like, well, when we make this reveal, we want the person you actually care about being the person who's there, who has this witness to him. And obviously they could do that with the Feast for Crow material that they haven't adapted for certain characters.
Yeah.
So next season, we'll see what happens next season.
Yeah.
Some things left. And, well, maybe some of the stuff that we were kind of, for those of you who don't really want, we're going to go more into book stuff more clearly here. We already did a bit, but let's, for those of you who don't really want, we're going to go more into book stuff more clearly here. We already did a bit, but let's have some things left. And, well, maybe some of the stuff that we were kind of here, I think, there may be stuff that is just more explanatory, and that if you want to wait till the show has it, you should probably skip and not bother reading the rest, watching the rest of this video. But for those of you who stick around, well, Jon, we barely touched on him at all. Now, they've changed things where Jon gets the idea, Jon goes out to do this. I liked the scene with Mance, and obviously Karen Hines is...
the scene is fine, that's not Mance.
Karen Hines is not the Mance of the book. Very different, and the scene lacks a lot of atmospheric stuff. First off, Jon
lacks his wife giving birth, for one thing.
His wife noisily giving birth, well, his woman.
Yeah.
And a dragon horn, a giant horn, which he says is the horn of winter, and that Tormund, who is not a prisoner in the book, will be sounding in 3 days if you don't let us through. Yeah. It's quite changed, but I like. They give him Tormund's dialogue about Ygritte and Mag the Mighty and so on. So that's nice that they preserved that, even if they have to give it to a different character. And Mance try to work out a deal. That's fine. And I'm impressed with the charge that they showed, the visual effects.
It's a little too large.
Well, 25... I think I calculated. I actually had to...
Well, once you had to add a whole...
Well, it came out to like 2,500.
Okay.
I think it's like 2,000 men or something.
Okay.
It's not far off. But obviously, it comes to Liberty. We have this big charge, but then because of... They have to have all these guys in the woods. Yeah. So you have this beautifully massed line of horse suddenly having to turn into little knots of people fighting in the woods. And so, fine. It's limitations of budget of such.
I mean, you wouldn't ride in there and give up your advantages.
Yeah, I mean, my bigger issue is Mance surrendering. Seeing if people die. In the book, Mance Rayder mounts up and calls on people to fight and charges into battle. And it's only when he falls that things fall apart and the wildlings run off. It would have been nice to have that last brave charge from him. Yeah. And I think it would be more... Because to me, a king beyond the wall who sees an enemy surrounding him on both sides and says, kneel, surrender, throw down your weapons.
I mean, they haven't specifically saying that they don't kneel.
Yeah, fine, throw down your weapons, surrender.
But the wildlings...
How would he ever have become king beyond the wall? It's not...
I think he would be the past king, the former king beyond the wall.
Yeah.
In a moment, in that very moment, somebody else would decide.
So I think they simplified things to make it easier for themselves. And I wish they hadn't. I wish they hadn't put themselves in that position. I would have liked to see them right off the fight and then get captured fighting. That's worthy enough of a wildling king. But the whole immediate, that's enough of us have died, throw down your weapons is... And I would have liked, at least, for signs to be, lots of them said, fuck that. Yeah. And a lot of them just going and... Taking off. Yeah. Or you know, fighting to the death, and some taking off into the woods. I think it's important to... So they made a little sloppiness there not having it. But it was nice seeing Jon and Stannis meeting and talking
seeing all those horses that we've missed over all these seasons.
Yeah,
they the horses. All in that episode.
All in that episode. Well, I mean, they had them in Blackwater as well. Mm. But that was really impressive. I mean, we've never seen a charge like that on the show.
But yeah, the Jon and Stannis interaction is good.
And where he saves Mance and says, you know, my father would have taken a prisoner here, what he has to say. Great stuff. This then leads into the scene in the yard. Now that one's really cool with the
visual in particular.
The visual in particular, where you see the Aemon speaking about all the dead and the funeral pyre being lit, and then the heat waved air, flames, and then Melisandre resolves, and she's looking across the flames at Jon Snow, and he's looking back at her. That's a fantastic little moment. That great beat for him to have written in there. Really nicely captured by Alex Graves. Obviously, that's a great way of hinting, foreshadowing, like, okay, there's something happening here. There's some sort of connection, some sort of story that we're going to get next season. Of course, not everyone was burned at that pyre, as we discovered when he talks to... I mean, there was just men of the watch, basically. And he had, of course, told Stannis to burn all the bodies.
Right, yes. To make
sure. But we find out when he talks to Tormund that, you know, Ygritte hasn't been burned yet. Yeah. And it's a great scene, I think, with him as well. And I'm glad they finally really got some real use out of Christopher Hivju. I think he did a great job there. And it led to a really beautiful scene. Again, Alex Graves did a beautiful job with her, you know, being burned, her cremation, near the weirwood tree. Rose Leslie looked beautiful, you know, pale, dead, but you
makes
know,
a beautiful
red hair.
Corpse.
She makes a beautiful corpse. Really touching, great stuff. Hats off for that. I mean, I loved this the visual, the lushness of the sort of white.
Yeah, there was some great visuals on the wall in particular. I think they really managed to wrap that storyline nicely.
After that, we have Gregor. We've kind of discussed that.
Yeah, I think there's just some logic.
The logic we discussed earlier. Cersei, Tywin, Jaime, Dany, Daenerys. Now we talked about the dragons. Before that, she actually first meets with his teacher, Finez, I believe his name was.
Yes.
Like the actor, he did a nice job. Yeah. But again,
I mean, it's a good scene.
It's a good scene. It's just sort of like the logic of it. Like, okay, my master said it's best I leave, rather than him offering me a salary, room, and board.
Yeah, I guess maybe they felt that anyone who was a former slave had to get out of those households so that the guy wouldn't be accused of keeping a slave around.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah. It's different in the books in the sense that issues like these do come up, both in A Storm of Swords and A Dance of Dragons. Dany finds out that there's a number of people who want to sell themselves to the Qartheen.
Yes.
And
now, mind you, those people are not former slaves. They are actually formerly wealthy slavers and merchants and so on who've lost everything. I mean, we lose stuff like the fact that Dany kind of claims all the wealth of Meereen to sort of centrally control it and use it not to enrich herself, but to try and work on repairing the city and so on. But she's kind of claimed everything. And so people who used to be rich are now poor. And
they want the security of basically they're well educated. They would be like tutors and scribes and things like so. They would have a comfortable relative life as a slave. So like this guy, that's they draw the inspiration from as that sort of well-educated slave, much like the Greek slaves in Rome that were tutors. They were quite respected. And had pretty good lives, although they were owned. So she actually allows that. Now, she probably allows it, I guess, because the Qartheen, well, it could be Qartheen who are residing in and around Meereen, perhaps, merchants and such.
No.
But for the most part, it's selling to outside of Meereen. But she has no problems with that happening, people practicing slavery outside, basically.
Yeah, she doesn't try
and she even, agrees with Missandei's suggestion that when this happened in Astapor, similar basically sales of slaves, 10% would go to the states. And she has no problem claiming the profits from that. So she's a bit more practical in the books about
this whole contract business, and then is a bit odd. Like, why not just say pay a salary? I don't why is that? I mean,
it's like hired servants are a completely unknown concept.
Exactly. Hired servants are very well known. Why do they have to become indentured servants instead of a contract that turns them into a virtual slave? That was a little strange.
They wanted to make a similar point too in the books, but
they came up with an odd way of doing it.
Yeah, so it's that whole logic thing again.
I mean, if he had said, well, I used to be a merchant or and
lost everything in the looting and
but there's a passing merchant from Karth who's willing to buy me as a tutor for his children. Can I sell myself? And she said, fine. So it's a little logical, but the scene itself is logic aside is nice and well done, well acted, showing the difficulties of her situation.
Well, that leads then into the shepherd scene, which we pretty much cover that.
The actor, I don't have his name. I know he did a little interview about it. I thought he did a fine job, feeling really. You could really feel for him the loss and the grief. Especially when everything is in this Meereenese language. It sounds like it's a language made for grieving in, because it felt really sad.
And speaking of language, the one other point we wanted to make about the scene is about the start when when Missandei gives Daenerys his titles to Fennis.
Her style,
and it turns out that she has gone from being the queen of the Andals and the First Men to the queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, as it should be. But the Rhoynar have been misplaced throughout the whole series.
Until this moment. Why? I don't know. Maybe Missandei is a stickler for...
Yeah, she's a book purist.
She's a book purist. And so she worked that in there. The Rhoynar are I mean, if you're still here, you haven't actually read the books. But the Rhoynar are the third and final sort of great migration into Westeros, and they settled exclusively in Dorne. So the Dornish are part Rhoynish. That's the name of the I guess you would call them Rhoynish, or part Rhoynar. And it's a detail that they dropped from because I guess when they started the series, they never knew were we going to see Dorne or were we gonna do anything with the Dornish at all. And so they dropped that just to not be confusing, I think. And now somehow it snuck in. I'm guessing somewhere someone made a mistake, or Missandei just snuck it in because it's wrong. So, thank you, Missandei. And also names. I mean, Drogon is named.
Oh yes.
For the first time, the dragon has gotten his name.
Whereas for some reason we don't actually get the other two's name when she's locking them up. She could have
Would have been nice to have them, Rhaegal and Viserion.
Yeah.
Bran, Jojen. Jojen, this is a big change from the book. He's still alive at this point in time, although he's poorly off.
Of Pip and Gwen.
Yeah,
That's a
death. Early death, touching that she sort of cuts his throat, so he's not there to be tortured, or by those creatures.
Well, there are some people who speculate he's not alive in the books, right?
There's some speculate at the end of the novels of The Death of Dragons he's dead. I don't think so, but he's certainly quite ill. Yeah. So I don't think he is. People talk about the paste that Bran is fed, and tasting kind of like it's red and tastes a little bit like blood. I just don't think. I don't quite think that's how he's going to end. But I could be wrong. But something about it doesn't work for me. But here, she kills him with her own hand, rather than have him be, slowly killed or whatever, whiteified. Just we commented a little bit about what we disliked about it, sort of the big jump magic
hokey
stuff, but hokey magic, but it felt like it's great on the one hand that they embrace it. It's not great, but they sort of make it something that people may find funny or silly or goofy. When it's such a delicate subject, like you don't want people to kind of roll their eyes at it. You want people
magic in fantasy. That's one of the things that people often, find is that goofy and take it not seriously because of how it's done on TV or in films. And this was one of those.
I think so. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe people will like it more than we do.
No, she pulled fireballs out of her ass. It's
out of her ass. She threw them out of her hand. And I guess Varys. Let's touch on him. Of course, he helps.
Varys is going on a trip.
That was a great little touch. Now, this is funny on some aspects. The show seems to have deliberately dropped stuff that made people think certain conspiracy theories have existed about Tywin's death and Varys.
Yeah.
That Varys manipulated events for Tyrion to kill Tywin. I've actually never been a fan of this. I do think once he saw Tyrion was in a murderous rage and he said, I'm not going to have you kill me, so yeah, go ahead, go wherever you want. But, so I've never bought that, personally. I think you may feel differently. I don't know.
No,
No, you agree. So, I don't, others do.
Don't accuse me of being
conspiracy theorist here.
I don't think it's...
Yeah, so I don't, but they actually kind of, even if that is George's intention, whether it's to make you at least speculate about it, or whether yes, there's something there, they seem to have dropped it entirely. Varys is like...
Of course, that's a good point. Tyrion actually meets Varys before the killing.
He meets him before the killing. After his break with Jaime.
Yeah.
After that sort of slap, and that we'll try to kill each other next time we see one another. And to me, that's a big reason for why I don't think Varys plotted this. There's no way Varys knew that Jaime was going to inform Tyrion of this particular thing.
And that Tyrion was going to be so unstable at that moment.
Yeah. So, and it is weird. I mean, I guess it is weird in the show that Tyrion somehow manages to figure out how to use the tunnels to get to where he wants to go. Trial and error. Did he just kind of try this one and pop his head out? Oh, that's the right one. I don't know. But anyways, time constraints of the show. But here we have Varys not involved, not knowing what happened. Tyrion's uncommunicative, putting him on the boat, preparing to walk back to King's Landing when he hears the bells ring, and he goes, shoot. And funnily enough, he doesn't know what's happened. For all he knows, Tyrion went and killed Cersei or something, or Tommen.
Well, he killed someone important.
Someone important has died. Tyrion probably has something to do with it.
Yeah. He asks him, what have you done? Because he comes in with, I guess he's got scratch.
Tyrion doesn't talk.
And Tyrion is looking a bit traumatized. And
he doesn't quite know. But he's like, okay, and when he hears the bells, he's like, crap. And he decides, I'm taking off as well, because soon enough people will suspect me, or my name will come up, and So that's an interesting one, because it kind of cuts entirely against all that. Whether they deliberately cut it, whether it's proof.
And this is obviously a big change from the books, in that Varys isn't going anywhere in the books, or hasn't gone anywhere in the books. Not that. No,
well, properly speaking, we have no idea. He could have gone and then he came back.
Yes, I suppose so.
Okay, but certainly there's evidence
that he is present for later stages.
Yeah. So they've changed that, and I don't know. I tend not to want to read tea leaves based on the show. Like, oh, the show did this. Does this mean back in the books? No. So here, the fact that they drop that and they simplify it, it could mean there's nothing there, as I've said, or it could mean that they've decided it's too complicated and will drop it. I don't know. So don't take anything out of it. It's just kind of funny to point it out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's it. On the whole, let's give a rating for this.
Oh gosh, it's a difficult one.
There's the highs are really high, and I mean, just I said I got goosebumps when we meet the three-eyed crow, the last green seer.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that they embrace that. I didn't love that they made it hokey, some of the stuff before. I loved Arya and the Hound. I didn't love the logic leaps. I enjoyed those 10-15 seconds of Cersei being Cersei. I didn't love the way they got there. So there was a lot of stuff where I just couldn't quite. Yeah. I couldn't bridge the gap between my knowledge and what I feel that they've portrayed in the show and what they didn't suddenly do. I don't feel that the arcs of these characters
led to those moments
in a way that was earned, and it wasn't just a way of them shoving them into place. So I will give it an 8 of 10, and I'll say it's kind of marginally on the awesome side. That's where I'll go, because the highs are really high, and they really capture the spirit of the novels in a way that I guess I didn't really expect them to manage it. So I'll say 8 of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm more in the... It's probably a 7 because there are moments that really lift it up. I'm such a weakness for... You have such a weakness for the dragons.
Yeah.
And, when they manage to do something right with Dany and, we've had a lot of issues with Emilia Clarke's portrayal and they kind of remain, but when she's being, low-key and sad...
Yeah,
that's sort of...
But she does a very fine job.
That she does very well, so that works. There are awesome moments in it, but it's not an awesome episode. And did like the ending a lot. I mean, it's a very hopeful ending in a sense that sort of...
She finally got away.
Finally got away. Obviously, she's going off to learn to be an assassin, but...
but where is she going next is the big question, so...
But that was, nice music. Some really nice pieces of music throughout the episode. I think that the choral theme of the main theme, that the variation that they did and all of that was...
Yeah. So you say kind of a meh plus?
Kind of a meh with pluses, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So okay, our last bit after this is the last background bit that we promised.
Yes, spoilers. Beware of spoilers.
Beware of spoilers.
Because, now we're going to dig into why the phrase 1,000 eyes on one gave us chills.
Yeah, when we first read we got to read Dance of Dragons a bit earlier than most. We got a manuscript from George, and we came to that passage, and the first line is about this pale lord and ebon finery, and
that's the point when we went, oh my god!
Because we knew that was it. We knew who this was. Now, many fans who haven't read those novellas, even some who did, still didn't make the connection. Even later on, when he provided some more detail, like his name, his brothers, this figure, the last green seer, the three-eyed crow,
who is a crow, in fact,
who was a
the
crow.
last thing he was before ending up bonding with a tree was a man of the Night's Watch.
Not just any man, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
Commander of the Night's Watch, indeed.
This is Brendan Rivers, Lord Bloodraven. That was his nickname. They don't have that, and I was ashamed, but they didn't show it. He is one of the great bastards, as the name of nobly born bastard sons of Aegon IV the Unworthy, who had many bastards, but he had a number who were called the Great Bastards.
Are there 9 of them?
Forget the total number of bastards he had, but the Great Bastard... Brendan was born to one of his mistresses, Melissa Blackwood. Yeah. Missy Blackwood.
Or was it? Did it end up in Missella? I forget.
I think it went to Melissa. It did change.
Missy, anyway. Missy Blackwood.
One of his mistresses, and one of the most beloved of the mistresses. And when he was born an albino. And he had a birthmark, a strawberry patch on his cheek, which some people claimed looked like a raven. And the raven are sort of on the
arms of the Blackwoods
yeah
as well. So.
yeah the Blackwood arms feature a flock of ravens above a weirwood tree.
Red eyes too.
Or
as
around
well. Did he have red eyes?
He had red eyes
Yes.
as well from being an albino. So he became known as Bloodraven because of that. He was always sort of the scrawniest, slightest of his bastards, but he was very bright, precocious, grew up to become one of the most feared men in the Seven Kingdoms.
A great archer.
A great archer with using weirwood arrows.
Yeah.
Said to dabble in sorcery. Had a private army called the Raven's Teeth. Helped save the day at the Red Grass Field when his half-brother Daemon Blackfyre rebelled and tried to almost claim the Iron Throne. He is said to perhaps have personally killed his Raven's Teeth. Used they were archers, mounted archers. They rained arrows down and killed Daemon's sons. Those would be the nephews of Brendan. And they killed.
And then there's a famous duel.
Daemon as well.
Yes.
And then afterward, there's a famous duel between him and another half-brother, Bittersteel, Aegor Rivers. Aegor's mother was a Bracken. Now, the Brackens and the Blackwoods, as you probably know from the books, have a long-standing, infamous feud. So they had various reasons not to like one another.
Bloodraven and Bittersteel did not get along at any point. And
no.
add to that they had a famous rivalry about yet another bastard, their half-sister, the beautiful Shera Seastar. So here you have, in true Targaryen fashion, you have two half-brothers fighting over their half-sister.
Yeah, and Brendan won her love, but that famous duel after Daemon Blackfyre's kill, and some say, it was Brendan's arrows that killed Daemon Blackfyre. Led to him losing his eye, and so later on.
And Bittersteel lost a hand.
No.
That
you know what? That was George's original idea, but he said he decided to drop that because it's too close to Jaime.
Okay. See, see.
Sometimes we get notes that George then changes somewhere along the way.
That's right. He had the symmetry of them both losing a body part, but yes.
I don't think he replaced with any of her loss of body part. I think he got away without.
Yeah, but yes, Bloodraven, one eye less, and. This is obviously then.
Oh, I should mention he carries the sword Dark Sister as well. Yes. He was given the sword Dark Sister, the Valyrian steel sword that Queen Visenya used. That
Aemon the Dragon Knight.
Aemon the Dragon Knight. But for those who've read The Princess and the Queen, that Prince Daemon Targaryen, the wonder of his age, the most infuriating Targaryen you could meet, used. So he got that, and he rose high. He rose very high indeed. He became a trusted advisor, a counselor, a hand of a king.
Yeah.
And then we hear that when Aegon V became king, he got Brendan out of the Black Cells, where he was being held as a prisoner. We know why, but you do not yet know why. That we can't discuss. That World of Ice and Fire will reveal more about that. So, we'll just say it does reveal lots of interesting stuff about Aegon V and Brendan Rivers and so on. But anyways, he took him out of Black Cells and let him join the Night's Watch, and actually he sent him with great pomp and circumstance. Him and his brother Aemon. So Aemon knew Brendan to the wall with.
Aemon obviously wasn't the prisoner or anything.
But
he was just joining it as a minister.
And he had Sir Duncan the Tall
escorting them.
And they went to the wall. So, and in time, Brendan became Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and then he disappeared. I believe I can say that. I think the app has it. We put it in the app. It's a detail George provided that Brendan, after I don't know how many years, disappears one day after during a ranging, and is never seen again. And now we know where he went. He went to find children. I said
with his dabbling in magic, he's supposed to have done that partially also after he and Shera Seastar became an item. That she was a rumored sorceress, so they seem to have had all these. Dealings with magic going on.
Obviously, he became one of the things he became as hand. He also became sort of spy master.
Yeah.
And people said he had spies everywhere, and 1,000 eyes in one. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a riddle. How many eyes does Lord Bloodraven have? 1,000 eyes in one. One for the eye that he had left, 1,000 for the eyes of his spies.
Yeah.
Now, we actually meet him in the third of the Duncan Egg novellas, The Mystery Knight. But if you pay very special attention to the first parts of that, before he shows up, it may be that he showed up
a little
earlier than you would realize. All thanks to sorcery. There is a Manfred Plum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who is supposed to be related to Viserys Plum. Now that ties into some other
we could
stuff.
Ramble on a lot, but
yeah,
let's not do that.
Let's not do that. But there's little bits where there's this amulet that he's wearing, or his necklace, or brooch, or something.
Yeah.
And there's bits where Dunk kind of like something odd about him, his appearance. Like he doesn't quite look
Funny
right.
that, of course, the whole thing
Yes.
about storing illusions in
Glamours
in
objects.
In objects, yes, indeed.
It's the fact that he was a sorcerer seems to be true enough.
Yeah.
There's
he may
also
have had dreams, prophetic dreams that we know. That
he
some
may have been a
Targaryens...
skin changer, because I recall there's a hawk, I think, flying, or a raven maybe flying
keep
over.
in mind that the Blackwoods hold to the old gods, so they are first men in origin. So we could have in him a combination of the skin changing ability and the Targaryen abilities.
Yeah. There's no evidence that like Andal, someone with pure Andal blood, there's no sign that they can skin change. It seems to be something that entered into the first man lineages, and one has to suppose it somehow entered magically through contact with children. I don't think
interbreeding. No.
I don't think it's possible, because I don't think they are a human species, given the way Tor describes them. But magical.
Sure. There's the ghost of High Heart to consider.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Of course, she's an albino.
Yeah. So
yes.
In any case,
there's so much here.
There's so much here. So
which is partly our excitement with that whole section.
Because it touches so much into sort of this deep history, this deep background.
We've been hearing about just the three-eyed crow from the start of the books, about Bran finding him, and then the fact that it turns out to be someone that ties into so many things about the past.
Yeah, and it's just fantastic, and I think it's the other thing is that for me the fact that they touch on it, and the fact that they show, because I mean the thing is I recall asking George, we did an interview with him, like, did you always know? And I asked him like outright, did you always know that the three-eyed crow was Bloodraven? And his answer was like he always knew that he would be tied to the Targaryens, basically. He may not have had the specifics of which Targaryens and how, but he always kind of knew that there was going to be a connection there. So, and so you're thinking, back in 1994, when he's resuming writing this.
This is a long game.
It's a long game. He waited a long time
for that reveal.
I mean, before Dunk and Egg existed in his mind, Egg obviously was in the trees, but Dunk and that whole line of the story, obviously, I think probably when he had Aegon and Worthy, he knew he'd have bastards. He must have thought maybe one of them. I don't know.
Well, he knew in 98, certainly.
Yeah.
Because we have those ancient notes.
Yes.
Which include the bastards.
Yeah. So 98 at least, he definitely had it all fleshed out. But apparently all along, at least, he had this notion that the three-eyed crow was not going to be a child of the forest. It was going to be someone, a Targaryen or something like that, anyways. So that's pretty interesting, and it's pretty cool that it's this long game. And it's funny. Again, if you haven't read the books,
it doesn't pay off in the same way because
the novellas. It doesn't pay off in the same way.
No.
So the details he reveals in the book. My name was Brendan, and they haven't really discussed the fact that Brendan Rivers was Bloodraven in the hand, and so on. They mentioned Bloodraven, but I don't think Aemon mentions his name as Brendan, does he?
No.
And he talks about the brother. I had brothers, a brother I loved, a brother I despised. Touching on his sort of the actual brothers he had, and it's fascinating stuff. It's wonderful stuff, and it'll be really interesting. I'm really hopeful of how they go forward with it. I would love to know that they decide to go more into the history now.
Yeah.
I don't know what they will. We'll see, but it's just nice that it's there. So
Well, they could be horrible and invent another background. But let's not even think about that.
no, I'll assume the best,
Because
that they
else
know that it's
different.
gold.
Yes.
It is gold, and
It's
they would
gold.
never possibly ruin it
Yeah.
because they just know how brilliant it is because they're discerning individuals.
I mean, I had kind of thought that that might even be the final. This is partially why we were discussing it last, because I had thought that it might be the final shot of. I actually had,
Yeah.
but they obviously wanted something that was a little bit more going forward, more clearly going forward.
Yeah.
And certainly Arya's bit couldn't have been put anywhere else.
Yeah.
So once they
At
decided
the
to
end,
have
it
her
was the
on the
right
ship
place.
and sailing away, that's
Right
much
place.
more of a final image.
So that's it. We've discussed the final episode. Next week, or maybe a week after, I don't know, when we feel like doing it, we'll do our season 4 big epic review, going over all the storylines and kind of giving a decision on sort of what we think this season ended up in terms of where it could have been and where it ended up being, if that's any difference. You can tell it's probably a difference. We'll discuss a bit of how
Various characters, their arcs during.
So let's discuss how the forum, for those who don't follow the forum, how the forum seems to have overall taken these things, because we have some interesting differences in our views on some topics. So between the sort of the main, the sort of the average forum goer and us have some differences. So until then, thanks for sticking around.